She has the best taste of chicken. Or so the neighbors believed. Every whisper in the compound carried the same story of a poor widow hustling to survive. But behind those late-night trips and quiet sacrifices lay a secret far richer than fried chicken, one that would shock everyone. The noise of Lagos never truly died down, even at night. Cars still honked on the busy expressway. Generators hummed in the background, and vendors along the street corners shouted last calls to customers before closing shop. Amid all that chaos, Chioma, a 35-year-old widow, tried to keep her life together for the sake of her 2 children. Her husband's death had been sudden, a car accident on 3rd Mainland Bridge, and since that day, her world had never been the same. The family house they once shared with pride now felt like a burden, its rent almost swallowing her every savings, and the little savings her husband left behind had been used up in school fees and hospital bills for her youngest child. From the outside, neighbors believed Chioma survived by frying and selling chicken. Each morning, when they saw her returning from Mile 12 Market with bags of groceries and spices, tongues wagged. "That widow, she's just managing with that her chicken business," one neighbor whispered to another. Others pitied her, shaking their heads, assuming she was barely making ends meet. The children, 12-year-old Ada and 9-year-old Chaik, never corrected the narrative. They knew better than anyone that their mother's life was more complicated than it appeared. The truth was, Chioma's nights held more weight than her days. While most families in the compound locked their doors and turned off their lights to sleep, Chioma was only just beginning her work. She would tuck her children into bed with warm promises that everything would get better, and then retreat into her small kitchen, transforming it into something more than a cooking space. There, she pulled out sleek packaging materials, polished her stainless steel pots, and began to prepare meals that were far from the ordinary fried chicken people thought she sold. Her late husband had worked in catering before his death, and though he left her with little money, he had unknowingly left her with something more valuable: his client list. Corporate workers in Ikoyi, tech founders in Yaba, and even politicians in Abuja had once depended on him for meals during private events. After his passing, most of them assumed the service ended. Chioma, however, quietly picked it up. With the help of her old smartphone and sheer determination, she began offering discreet food deliveries, not to the general public, but to select individuals who craved home-cooked meals without the stress of going out. What made her service unique was her secrecy. She never advertised openly, never posted on social media, and never revealed her identity to new clients until trust was established. Orders came in through WhatsApp messages and late-night phone calls, often accompanied by coded instructions. Some of her clients were high-profile individuals who valued discretion more than anything else, and she became the answer to their hidden cravings. One night, she might be delivering trays of spicy pepper soup to a lonely bachelor in Lekki. The next, she would be preparing exotic dishes for a private gathering in Victoria Island. Her children noticed the pattern. They saw her return at odd hours, her clothes faintly smelling of suya spice or grilled fish. Sometimes, bundles of cash appeared in her drawer, carefully tucked away for school fees and house rent. Though they didn't fully understand, they knew their mother's strength went beyond frying chicken for roadside buyers. Ada, the older one, often asked, "Mummy, why do you always go out when everyone is sleeping?" Chioma would smile faintly, stroke her daughter's hair and reply, "Because that's when God blesses my hands the most." Still, the struggle was not without its scars. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Most mornings, when other mothers were walking their children to school, Chioma was fighting to keep her eyes open. The constant whispers of her neighbors also weighed heavily on her. They thought she was just another woman selling fried chicken to survive Lagos. Some pitied her, some mocked her, and some even avoided buying from her because they believed her business was too small. But Chioma never corrected them. Let them believe what they wanted. What mattered was that her children never went to bed hungry, and their future was still intact. On one particular evening, as she prepared her utensils for yet another night of hidden labor, the generator in the compound cut off abruptly, plunging everything into darkness. The children were already asleep, and Chioma lit a small kerosene lamp to continue her preparation. She paused, staring at the flickering flame, and thought about her husband. She remembered his words the night before his accident, telling her, If anything ever happens to me, don't give up. You're stronger than you think." Those words became her anchor every time exhaustion threatened to drown her spirit. As the night deepened, Lagos outside her compound roared with life. But inside her tiny kitchen, Chioma's secret empire grew silently. Each dish she packed, each delivery she arranged, was more than just food. It was survival, resilience, and quiet defiance against the hardship life had thrown at her. Neighbors could keep whispering about fried chicken. Only she and her children knew that behind closed doors, she was building something far more extraordinary. It was a humid Thursday night when Ada and Cheek decided they had had enough of unanswered questions. For months, they had watched their mother slip out quietly, after tucking them into bed, sometimes returning before dawn, sometimes only minutes before they needed to prepare for school. The mystery gnawed at them, and though Chioma always smiled and assured them everything was fine, children had a way of sensing what adults tried to hide. That night, while pretending to sleep, they exchanged glances under the dim glow of the kerosene lamp and silently agreed to follow her. As soon as Chioma dressed in her simple gown and picked up 2 insulated food carriers, Ada gently nudged her younger brother. They slipped on their slippers and trailed her out of the compound, careful to keep a distance. The street was alive, with the usual Lagos chaos okadas weaving between cars, hawkers chasing down buses, the distant thump of music from a nearby club. Their mother moved swiftly, almost as if she had done this route countless times. She boarded a keek heading towards the island, and without hesitation, the children squeezed into another one behind her, their hearts racing with excitement and fear. When the ride ended in Victoria Island, they found themselves outside a gleaming apartment complex that looked worlds apart from their modest building in Surulere. They watched their mother confidently hand her packages to a security guard who waved her in without question. Minutes later, she reappeared with empty carriers but fuller pockets, slipping a bundle of notes into her handbag before hailing another ride. The children exchanged wide-eyed stares, realizing she was not selling chicken by the roadside as everyone in the neighborhood believed. Determined to see more, they followed her to a second location, a stylish rooftop lounge where young professionals gathered for after-work drinks. From their hiding spot across the street, they saw her hand over a bag of neatly packed dishes to a man in a suit, who bowed his head slightly as though she was delivering something far more important than food. Again, she disappeared inside briefly, and again, she emerged with payment tucked away safely. The pattern was clear, and it stunned them. Their mother was not a struggling roadside food seller. She was running a hidden catering business serving people who had more money than they could imagine. When they finally returned home, sneaking in moments after she did, the children lay awake in awe. Ada whispered to Chaik, "Do you know what this means? Mummy is not suffering the way people think. She is actually helping rich people eat." Chaik, his young mind still processing, replied, "So why does she let everybody believe she's selling chicken?" The question lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. The next morning, Ada could no longer hold back. As Chioma prepared their breakfast, Ada blurted out, "Mummy, we followed you last night." The wooden spoon froze in Chioma's hand, her eyes widening. Chaik quickly added, "We saw everything. The big houses, the people in fine clothes, the money. You're not selling chicken at all." For a moment, silence filled the kitchen, broken only by the hiss of the frying pan. Chioma sighed and sat down, motioning for them to join her at the small table. "I didn't want to tell you because I wanted you to focus on school and not worry about how we survive," she began softly. She explained how she had taken over their father's client list after his death, how she used her cooking skills to provide discreet services to wealthy individuals who preferred privacy, and how every late-night trip was part of keeping their family afloat. She admitted that letting the neighborhood think she was just frying chicken protected her from envy and unnecessary attention. Ada listened with admiration, her eyes glistening. She finally saw her mother not just as the tired widow people pitied, but as a woman of extraordinary strength who had built something out of nothing. Chaik, though younger, felt a swelling pride in his chest. He looked at his mother differently, not just as the woman who packed his school lunch, but as someone courageous and brilliant. That night, when Chioma prepared for another delivery, Ada offered to help slice vegetables, while Cheek insisted on packing the containers neatly. For the first time, they became part of her hidden world. And though they promised to keep the secret, the bond they shared deepened, and the respect they carried for their mother grew beyond measure. In their eyes, she was no longer just a widow trying to survive. She was a queen, building an empire in silence. The revelation came not through her neighbors, but by accident. One Saturday afternoon, Chioma received a frantic call from a client whose private party caterer had suddenly canceled. He begged her to step in immediately, offering triple her usual fee. With Ada and Chaik's help, she prepared trays of jollof rice, grilled fish, peppered snails, and desserts, then hired a van to deliver everything. She thought it would be another discreet job like so many before, but she didn't realize the event was a high-profile birthday party, attended by celebrities, politicians, and journalists. By the end of the night, the food became the highlight of the event, sparking conversations among the guests about the mysterious caterer behind it all. Pictures of the dishes and videos from the party went viral on Instagram and Twitter by the next morning. Comments poured in, praising the unique flavors and presentation. Food bloggers started asking who was behind the catering, and when one client inadvertently mentioned her name in a caption, the secret began to unravel. Within hours, people from her neighborhood began connecting the dots. The same woman they mocked for hawking chicken at odd hours was the one supplying food for the wealthy and famous. By Sunday afternoon, her compound buzzed with whispers. Some neighbors peered into her window pretending to greet her, while others openly expressed their shock. So, all this time, she was not selling chicken. This woman has been hiding an empire under our noses, one tenant muttered. Another shook her head, ashamed of ever mocking Chioma. For years, she had endured their pitying stares and sarcastic comments. Now, suddenly, they looked at her with a mixture of awe, envy, and respect. Chioma felt exposed at first. She had worked so hard to keep her business discreet, and the sudden attention threatened to undo the careful balance she had maintained. Yet, as more clients called with orders and more people asked to work with her, she realized that hiding was no longer an option. The children encouraged her to step into the light, assuring her that the world needed to see what she had built. With their support, she finally decided to register her business officially, branding it as Chioma's Signature Kitchen. Her transformation amazed even her harshest critics. The widow they once pitied for struggling to survive had turned into a respected entrepreneur. Invitations began to pour in from hotels, event planners, and even corporate organizations seeking partnerships. Newspapers carried features about her journey, calling her the silent caterer who fed the elite. The same neighbors who once whispered about her came knocking, offering to help or begging to be part of her growing business. But Chioma never forgot the nights of struggle when no one believed in her except her children. She chose carefully whom to trust, keeping her circle small and her focus sharp. Rather than boast, she used her story to inspire other women in the community. At local gatherings, she began encouraging widows, single mothers, and struggling young girls to believe in their skills and start small, no matter how others judge them. "People will talk," she told them, "but let your work speak louder than their gossip." Ada and Chaik were proud beyond words. At school, when classmates mentioned seeing their mother's name on social media, they straightened their backs, proud to say, "Yes, that's our mom." The gossip that once embarrassed them had been replaced by admiration. Their home, once filled with worry, now rang with laughter, and the sound of pots clattering as orders poured in daily. In the end, Chioma's life became a testimony that strength is not in what life spares you, but in how you rise from what it takes away. She did not let widowhood define her, nor did she allow gossip to break her spirit. Instead, she turned pain into power, secrecy into strategy, and whispers into applause. Where others saw only a poor woman selling chicken, she had quietly built an empire, and when the truth came out, she stood tall not just as a widow, but as a woman who had rewritten her destiny with courage.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more teachable and inspiring folk tales by FE.